Hi everyone, so the PTR update is finally live and I've just stopped my stream trying the new stuff quickly for the first time. It is actually a really huge update and definitely goes beyond my expectations. So there's lots of cool stuff in there, some reworks to some of the soul shards, actually some unnerving of the Firebirds, some other buffs to Demon Hunter especially, and also a few tweaks here and there. So overall, really good stuff. I think that the devs definitely did a good job there in changing the soul shards, making them more interesting, more balanced, and also just making the theme cooler in general. The power level of the shards probably decreased by, depending on the build, something like 3 to maybe 8 tiers or so, depending on how much you profited before and how much you profit now from the new shards. Especially the Sliver of Terror, it is giving you 25% increased damage per active cooldown instead of 75, and they didn't touch the Shard of Hatred. So now you actually have a bit of a choice between those two gems in the helm. I did actually play a few builds tonight using the Shard of Hatred and also another few builds using the Sliver of Terror. So there is actually some variety there now. The Fragment of Destruction is still some kind of like support gem, but that also got like a minor tweak with some movement speed on it. There is one big rework, which is the Dregs of Lies. So this was actually completely changed from a support only choice where it reduced enemy damage done and your own damage a lot to a pet gem. So now basically any pet build wants to run that one, and it gives you this kind of stacking effect that kind of like flows up and down and increases the damage and increases the damage of your pets overall. So this is actually extremely good, especially for pet-based builds. It's something like Inners and also the new Arachyr, which got a massive rework as well and is much better and much more fun to play in my opinion. Also this works for example for Marauders, which also got an update. So lots of good stuff there, and this definitely seems like a much better suited choice. In groups you can still make some use of some of the support gems. For example, the Stain of Sin got a change where instead of killing an elite enemy and then spawning this blood pool for 7 seconds that increases the damage done to non-elites, now you have a kill counter of up to 50, and then you spawn this blood pool, it lasts 15 seconds and it increases the damage done to elite enemies. So I think this is a formidable change. You still have this minus 25% damage done on this, so I wonder if some soul builds might use this when they really don't profit much from all of the other gems. But for supports in groups, this is incredibly good as well. You proc this here and there, get this huge blood pool, and you can blast down elites. So this is basically how that works. There's also one of those secondary effects now that spawns an extra progress globe, which is kind of interesting. I'm not sure if this is like buggy or something right now, but this is a clip of a speedrun that we were doing earlier, just trying out this new gem when it came live. And you can see that we are fighting yellow pack here. There's the pool of blood spawning right now, and here on the left is like this yellow pack in dying. You see it pops out the globes, and then we also had like a minion here that proc the globe again or something. So that was a bit odd, and apparently this effect also stacks, so that when you have multiple people wearing this gem, you can actually get more extra progression globes. So that's actually kind of curious. We have to kind of like nail down the mechanics of that. It didn't really seem like the biggest deal when you consider what other choices there are with the 50% attack speeds from the Pain shard and this 50% extra damage from the Anguish shard. You do have really strong support choices, and just one extra globe, while it is kind of funny, probably won't really matter that much. There's definitely a lot more testing needed for the details of that, but for now this is my first impression. There is a lot more other cool stuff in the patch notes. For example, one little change they made here to the Death Diggers. They now work with all primary skills, so not just those that generate resources. This especially applies to the new Arachyr set, so you can use any rune or corpse spiders now. This theoretically applies also to the signature spells on the wizard, but wizard generator builds are not really a thing. But perhaps this could make some ground for a future build that, you know, might be Spectral Blades or Electrocute, which is probably something that a lot of people would enjoy, I imagine. So there's definitely potential. and we'll see if something comes out of that for other builds. Barbarian didn't really get any changes. I'm going to talk about that in a separate video though. I did test it, and overall Hoda in a decent spot, I'd say. Then comes the Arachyr update. So this was actually a pretty massive update. So they did really do a good job now with this. It is much stronger now. Essentially, the way this works now is you have your Spider Queen, you have her on a leash, and you command her to run around just like before, and anything that touches this leash between you and the Spider Queen gets this infested debuff. This is a little bit like Locust Swarm, it looks like some black, like swirly stuff. You can see it, and it seems to last forever as long as you don't disengage the enemy. And any enemy that has been touched will take all the damage that your spiders deal. Basically, you can throw your spiders on one enemy and everything around you takes damage. So this actually has been a massive AoE buff, and it does give the set some really interesting and unique dynamic where you kind of like run into a pool and you kind of like try to circle around the entire area to try to get everything infested. So quite cool stuff. I did try some mechanics quickly to see how that works, and I also did a run of that, and I cleared 140 quite easily. There's also 150 clear of this build at higher Paragon, so it does seem to be definitely not bad, and it still has a really high Rift Guardian killing capabilities. Right now it's hard to beat the inners for that, but I did go into a GR 150 with this, and I blasted down a Rift Guardian in like 40 seconds or something, no pylons. So this was definitely not bad, and I believe that especially in the future, if there's ever going to be some kind of inners nerf or so, this can definitely be next in line or somewhere near the top of these Rift Guardian killing builds, and it's definitely usable, on the level of usable I'd say, for farming on a Witch Doctor and also for forming groups that need to kill a boss somehow. There have been some other small updates to the set, like they removed this double attack speed, which is very good because that made it quite laggy. They also gave the 75% damage reduction, a bit of a grace timer, so that's quite good as well. And overall, it definitely feels like a much better build now, I believe. So there's a lot more experimentation to be done. I'm also gonna talk about this in more detail in a separate video. One interesting update was here with the Ring of Emptiness that benefits all non-fetish pets. So they specifically didn't want to buff Zunimasa, but everything else. So this also means Gargs, zombie dogs, etc. So you can use that now, and this is actually going to be quite powerful for some of those builds. It doesn't really bring back Gargs or anything like that, but it is definitely a bit of a buff. So why not? And I think not including fetishes is a very good choice here, because that would just make Zunimasa way too clunky, and you don't really have to shoehorn in the Ring of Emptiness everywhere. Now here comes a very interesting change for the Bombardier's Rucksack for the Demon Hunter. The cluster arrow deals 150 to 200% increased damage. So they straight up just slap this on the quiver, and that is an amazing change, because this means that with Marauder set, you're gonna have Multishot and cluster arrow, and they're gonna be pretty much exactly on the same level. So this is amazing. You can play both skills now, depending on what you like. I think that this number is really accurate on making it very balanced between the two. I haven't been able to play this yet, but I will definitely go back and try a bit more cluster arrow. I did this before the patch, and it definitely seems like the right number. This is especially amazing because now you actually have at least 2 different builds that you can play with this Sentry Marauder setup, and you can decide, you know, one season you go this one season you go the other one. You might just like the visuals more. They have a bit different behavior and a bit different like position requirements. For example, for Multishot, this is much more strict, I would say, compared to Cluster Arrow, where you have like a very small AoE radius and the rockets fly everywhere. So there's definitely stuff like this, and that makes it quite exciting, I believe, for Demon Hunters. Here's also a bug fix for Impale. Chemical Burn not benefiting from the Shadows Mantle 6-piece bonus. I briefly tried this, and it seems like the Chemical Burn essentially doubles your single target damage now. So instead of going with a cold rune where you have this like AoE effect with the 25,000% weapon damage to subsequent enemies, now you can do Chemical Burn, which doesn't pierce, but you can essentially improve your single target ability, essentially play the build just like it was before if you want, just at a higher level. It's just straight up a buff in that case, or even improving your RGK capabilities. I don't think this will make Shadows anywhere like RGK group viable, but maybe in the future there's going to be some other buffs or some other tweaks or something else that lifts it up. But the problem that I saw after a little bit of testing is that this chemical burn weapon damage effect does not seem to calculate your crit damage or like your crit chance at all. So it seems like your initial hit can benefit from crit stats, but the burn actually doesn't and will be multiple times weaker. I'm not sure if this is intended or just a bug, or maybe this needs to be enabled in some way, but this is what I saw from a little bit of testing. I will try to dig deeper there when I can. Necromancer didn't really get any changes, just got tweaked down a bit from the lack of cooldown reduction now. So this Essence of Anguish gem, essentially, instead of up to 75% CDR, will only give you 37.5 if you go with the CDR version, or 25 when you go with this poison damage version, which is probably what you will do. And this makes Raphma, not exactly weak. It is probably still the best Necromancer build, but it is probably not really going to be any kind of a group thing anymore. We tried this briefly. I didn't really feel very powerful with Raphma compared to an Inner Monk, and we dropped the idea pretty quickly, at least in GR 150s. Maybe this will still turn out to be a very strong solo build, I believe, but this is probably where it will be. And finally, we are at one of the big highlights here for the Wizards. The Firebird set has been completely unnerved back to the old numbers. 3000% weapon damage per second, 5000% increased damage, and the one change that probably most people were asking for: pets cannot trigger this effect. You guys know what this means. There is no mirror images anymore. So in the end, this will result in an overall nerf to Firebirds, which I guess we all expected. And I think this is a nerf in a really good way, because it actually produces a new high-end meta for Wizards where you play the Flameblades. Or it seems like there is a very similarly powerful, still channeling version with a Zodiac Ring and Explosive Blast and the Death Wish that you can also play if you still want to do this channeling kind of playstyle. And they seem to be also very balanced between them. I'm not 100% sure about this channeling version with the Explosive Blast, but I do know about the Flameblades because I have played it quite a bit. And I can at least say for myself that this is a much more fun version of Firebirds than this mirror images stuff. So I think this is great. I think this is really good that they have listened. And it also leaves Wizards in a decent spot to just blast on their own if they want to. It gives them decent group viability. It's probably not enough for like a meta build, but you will be maybe something like 6 tiers, 5 tiers weaker or so with Flameblades compared to before with the mirror images version. But you have much more mobility, you can do much faster speed runs. So there is definitely also a bit of an upside there. So kudos to Blizzard for this change. Here's also another couple bug fixes they put in here, which was nothing new actually. So I didn't know about this Earth ally damage. So apparently there was a bug that they never got buffed with the Cruise Boots. I will have to check that. I don't believe it's gonna make Earth Ally in any way viable, but we'll see. And all the other stuff was already part of the previous patch. So this is it. And I believe that this update to PTR was definitely great. So we have been trying out a little bit of the group meta this night, and it seems like, Inner, as expected, performing extremely well. We've been blasting through 150s, no problem. Doing some double Inner combo. We have tried this with Raphma, we have tried this with Scythe, we've tried this with a Bombardment Satyr as well. Yeah, it's kind of hard to really pinpoint it exactly. The biggest issue that the two Inner Monks had was that it was kind of laggy because he had these 20 Mystic Allies that punch with area damage, and even if you remove area damage, it can get quite laggy very easily. So we removed one of them, and basically I was like a half support and a little bit of extra damage with my Necro in the end. That also seemed to work kind of well, at least for these 150s here. So we'll do more group testing. I'll keep you guys updated about everything that we find out in the next couple days. But overall, I really like this update to the patch, and I think that this season is looking even better than I thought it did already before. So they have fixed the obvious stuff, they have balanced out some things, and they even gave this cluster arrow change, the Firebird change on top of that. The Arakia looks solid right now. So definitely something to experiment with for witch doctors as well. And overall, I'm quite happy with the result. There's probably some other tweaks I can do. Maybe with a few more tweaks and numbers, we'll see what more detailed testing will reveal. We only had a few hours now, essentially, before I stopped and made this video. And this concludes the update I have to share here. So hope you enjoyed my thoughts, and see you guys next time.